You
Hey,
can give
Jeff,
it to her.
she doesn't shed though.
That's the good
Jeff,
thing.
I'll race you. I've
I was
got a
thinking I'm a
cane.
lot like that puppy too. I need a lot of attention.
No comment. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
All right. So
Good
at
morning.
noon, we're going to have Rick come in. There are I had some questions sent over to him yesterday that agents sent me. So we will go over all those fun things. And I was reading them over, and a lot of them have to do with the multiple offer situation. So hopefully they can answer some of your questions. If you didn't get to answer or get to ask a question, maybe it's something that you've been thinking about and just wanted more info of. It should be quite interesting. I don't know if he'll have time. They're not too many. So hopefully if you do have something that you forgot to send or think of something while he's talking, just put it in the chat and I'll just hopefully be able to have him answer it. So I don't know how tight on time he is. So Jim, if you want to go ahead.
Well, good morning, everybody. We are once in the gens of Michigan weather changing, and we're in the, should I say, the what do you call it? Groundhog Day to real estate. Every day seems the same right now. We're getting up and we're chasing the proverbial tail sometimes. I will say this, it's kind of like, if you've ever sailed, not being a sailor myself, but I've been on a boat where we're trying to head in one direction and the wind is directly into us. It's kind of like you are, what should I say, having a lot of trouble making headwind or getting there. And what you have to do is tack back and forth, and you eventually get there. It just takes a lot more time and a lot more work. And that's what I kind of equate to this market. It's just difficult. I mean, I've been through them before, maybe not quite like this, but in almost every situation, it's the same thing. On one side or the other. It wasn't that long ago that we were all complaining about, too many listings. The buyers had too many choices. They weren't willing to act. They were negotiating on everything and going from there and trying to get the best deal. If they couldn't get it, well, it's just reverse. So everything goes, the pendulum goes both ways, and it will go back. So we'll see what transpires. But as I said, I think, I personally think as we get into the fall, things are going to change, and we're getting there. I thought it'd be earlier. The activity is earlier, but the inventory is not earlier. So that is good. But on another positive note, I want to welcome a number of new agents to our office. Tanya Meyer, is she here? I don't have my multiple on. No. Regina DeSanto, does she make it? Oh, there you are. I saw Regina. Welcome, Regina. Josie and Katie Max, we wish you the best in your transfer. We appreciate it. And Chris Codswell. I think he's with the Packer Group, and Regina's with Andy. And I wish you all success and welcome. So without further ado, Pam, you want to get into the meat of the things which we talked about?
Yeah, that was quick. Okay, so yeah, welcome to all the new agents. Just if you ever need anything, I'm a text away or in the office, or just let me know if you guys have any questions or you need any help.
And you can do that with me. You know what?
Yeah.
I've been in the business, I hate to say how many years, but decades. And I got a question over the weekend that I've never had, which is very unusual on a situation but I'll give you the answer to the best of what my experience tells me, especially with litigation and things like that. I've dealt with so many issues with attorneys, without attorneys. And, some of these guys, they try to blow smoke, as I say, when they're trying to, threaten you or whatnot. So if you've got any issues you're concerned about, we're all available to reach out and, give us a buzz. A text is easiest for me, but an email is also good. So if you need something, call, text, or email. Go ahead, man.
And obviously, Ryan's available as well, so I don't want to.
Yeah.
He helps out a tremendous amount. Just a couple of things for me. Just a reminder, everyone, we do actually have a couple in-house trainings. I've sent a few emails and invites via Facebook and things like that. But just a reminder, on Wednesdays, we do have our technology platform, KV Core. And I call it a strategy session because we really don't have a format each week. It's different people come in all the time. And it could be, honestly, if you've never logged on before and you're just overwhelmed and you just need to know how to start, we can get you going on that. Or if you're more seasoned and you just have more advanced questions. Bretta and Ken Tyler and Bruce meet, I think, every other week now, and they do a little mastermind thing, and I'm not gonna say they've mastered it yet, but they're really good at it. And they've every week they learn something new, and it's quite fascinating, to be honest with you. The system is just very robust, and it can help you out in your business. I know we've talked about it for the past 6-8 months, and the people that are using it and putting their contacts in and things like that, they are getting them calling back, and they are getting deals on it. So
Guys, I sound like a broken record. Thank you, Pam. Do something, do the minimum, get your contacts in there. This is a service we're providing that I can't make a horse drink at the water, but we can bring the water, and I'm just telling you guys, we will help you get them in. We'll, input them for you. We just need you to do a little bit of work and get your names and contact information so we can get them in the system. And then you can set it up any way you want from that, and we'll help you through the steps on that as well. It's a great tool to keep in touch with your past clients, and all research, as you know, says that's the best way to get business. And they say 90% of people that have dealt with an agent, they say would use them again, but only like 10% or 15% do, because they just lose touch. And this is a great way to keep in touch. And there's a variety of ways to do so. So I will keep pounding this home all the time. And so please take advantage of it. Thank you.
yeah, it's a great tool. So on that note, and it's not changing by any means, but when I send the office recap out either later today or tomorrow morning, they are doing a spring upgrade. So the system's not changing. So if you're used to it right now, it's getting faster. It's getting a little bit more user friendly. There's going to be a couple more additional things you'll be able to do with it. And it's explained in this 21-page handout that I'll send over to you guys, but it's pretty cool. They're just trying to change things every day. I mean, the people that are using it, are there a couple glitches? Yes, but they get solved quite quickly, and they kind of move along the way. So I will send that out with all the upgrades and things like that in the email recap. So also on Thursdays, we do have the new agent resource group. And again, we've been going over seller forms, buyer forms, purchase agreements, listing, everything. So it's easy, even if you want a refresher or you just have questions about something, even if you're not a new agent, it's just a time that it's available. We're in the conference room. Tyler's been helping out a lot with that, and Ken and Bretta, and it's just been really helpful. So thank you to all of you guys for that help. And then so every Wednesday and Thursday at noon, we're doing either KV Core or just general questions regarding real estate. So just want to remind everyone about that. I did send out a new vendor list a couple weeks ago, or maybe last week. If you did not get that, I will attach that to the office recap as well. That has been, all those phone numbers have been called. I added new people. It's pretty robust with how lengthy it is. So I might have missed a few people. I can always update it if you have someone and you want them on the list. It's a constant. It's in a format that I can update quite quickly. So
Pam, tell everybody how you chose those numbers. Are those all suggestions from agents who have used people and
Yes.
whatnot?
Yep, they're from our old vendor list. It was a little outdated, and going through COVID, unfortunately, some of those businesses didn't make it. So I was just having a few people call me and say that, this number's out of business, this number's out of business. So we just kind of revamped it all. And then I was asking for suggestions and things like that. So they're all of the numbers on there, someone in this office has used and has referred. So I can send that out as well. We have another training scheduled in a couple weeks. I didn't want to send the invite out yet because it has a Zoom link attached, and I didn't want to get confused with today's, but it will be on April 29th at 11 a.m. It is via Zoom, and I found a new guy. So his name's Steve Black, and he does a Get More Listings in a Tight Market with himself. So he does a 60-minute presentation. It's social media and referral generation masterclass, how to take your production to the next level. I think it's going to be awesome. I talked to his assistant for a while last week. I read some reviews regarding it, and it looks like it's going to be a great class. So that will be on April 29th at 11 a.m. via Zoom, and I will send a link in the office recap email, and I'll also make an event on Facebook. Let's see. On May 27th, next month, we are going to have a Preferred Realtors happy hour on the parking lot. Just kind of like how we did our Mexican taco truck fiesta fun thing in the fall. We're going to do something, we're going to have a different food truck, but we're going to do something just like that. So that was pretty popular. Praying for good weather. And yeah, we're going to do that. Maybe have some games and things like that. So that will be outside at the office. It's a Thursday from 4 to 7. Again, I'll send an email out and an invite through Facebook for that.
And that's not, we'll do something in the summer as well, but we just wanted to get a little get together, get out with the weather. Hopefully the weather will be good, but we were going to pick an earlier date, but it's a little shaky with this weather. So hopefully by then it'll be nice enough to, be able to get outdoors and enjoy each other's company, since that's been a long time coming. Another housekeeping matter, we were ready to roll with, if you would like, with our direct deposit of commission checks. Unfortunately, QuickBooks now had an issue. So we were ready to roll. Now they're having to adjust their system for whatever reason. So we'll get that going. As soon as they get that, it won't be long if that's something you want. And when we get it together, we will let you know.
My next thing on my notes is we're starting to plan our summer get together. I'm just kidding. So just to reiterate that, yeah, we're in the past, we've done some pretty cool things. We obviously will pay close attention to restrictions and guidelines and things like that. I am just forecasting that it's probably going to be something outside. We have done the outside things before and they've been very fun. So just TBD on the date and the event, but just look forward to that. Those are always great. Agents get to know each other. It's really cool. It's a really neat thing. So not lastly, but second to last, myself, and then with the help of Miss Bretta, she's been very helpful with this. We have started to make up personalized buyer handbooks and seller handbooks for you guys. And I can show you kind of an example right now. It is a work in progress. I was really trying to get it done by today's meeting, but I'm not trying to make it perfect, but I am. And the verbiage, that's what we're working on right now. But if you guys want to just take a look at what we have, which is, hold on one second. Oops. Sorry, I got to share screen. It takes a second. So basically the idea is just to have something in a PDF that you can send to your clients. And like I said, it's a handbook for both at this point. Would the listing presentation one is down the road, but I just wanted to start with these two things. So it's just a general, your guide to purchasing a next home, for instance. So I'll share this right now. So it does have our logo on it. I was just thinking it'd be kind of neat. I know we have the ones printed that are in book format in the office now, but they're not personalized with your picture and stuff like that. So I found this template and I just like the colors and things like that. So obviously the first page is going to have the logo on it. And then the second page is just going to be more personalized to you. So I used Bruce as an example because I knew he had a bio and things like that. And that's his nice picture. And this can be, it's basically this program is called Canva, and it's like PowerPoint kind of on steroids a little bit. So all this is, everything is movable. I mean, I can change anything that you want on this page. I can add a few pages if you want, just to make it yours to your clients. There's a little, our office, little bio right there. And then it just goes into, obviously the home buying process. So I think these are all set, but we're just working on the actual descriptions and things like that, but it's neat, and layout, obviously. The pictures are nice. The font is very nice and able to be read. So it's just another thing that we're going to provide for you guys. We are working on a couple other things. Like I said, the listing presentation will be next, but that's a little bit more in depth. And then we also can do digital business cards, just listed flyers, open house flyers and stuff like that.
So in something like this, if let's say you talk to somebody on the phone or you hadn't met them yet, this would be just get their email, say, I'd like to send you a little bio of myself and what we do in the home buying process. I hope you find it helpful. Now you can just send that to them, and or the digital card, which we'll have as well. But this is just a great lead in. Even with the seller, you can send them stuff on that, on your bio, what it takes, some of the things that we'll do. And it is just another lead in for you. and something that's a little more technology savvy than dropping off a book or whatnot, which, I think some read, some don't, but this will be something I think you'll find useful.
Okay, hold on. I gotta get my, oh my gosh. Why can't I? Okay. So we're just gonna leave this up for a minute because I can't maximize my. Okay, so this is the book that is being worked on. So what I was asking is, as soon as I launch it, I'll send an email out, and then if you want to make an appointment with me, or if it's just as simple as sending me the bio and I have your picture, I can do that. But we can kind of personalize it to how you guys want it to look. It is quite, like I said, user friendly. So there is that. How do I go to full screen? Does anyone know?
You're asking the wrong guy.
Jeffrey?
Yeah, you just go to exit. You can hit escape if you want, but
Well, right now it's like, I want full screen, and it's like, oh, I'm sorry, guys.
Look at the bottom next to the purple help button. Do you see the 2 arrows going out?
Yeah, there we go. Okay, and then well, I'm just trying to like not share my screen anymore.
yeah, all the way up at the top, it should have your controls, right top middle, to stop recording
No,
or stop sharing.
I don't have anything. Oh my God, this is really annoying. Okay. Okay. All right, well, that'll just be up for a minute. There we go. So last but not least, I will do the listing raffle courtesy of Title I. So that's fun. Kathy Barker won that last month, and last month we had 21 listings, and this month we had 43. So we doubled up and added a few. Kathy is only allowed to win once, unfortunately, but I have all the tickets in here. I don't know if you guys can see. So I'll just mix them up. Like I said, this is courtesy of Title I. It is a $400 gift card, which is quite nice. So thank you again, Title I, and Ryan is on this call.
Absolutely, thank
And I think Sarah is as well. So I'll just mix these up nice and mixy. Haha. It's on I have my split screen. That's what was screwing me up.
Ah,
All right. Not looking. Ready? Drum roll. Rose Burns,
Oh, my.
4430 Anderson Drive for her listing.
oh my.
Good job, Rose. So Rose can't win anymore either. No, I'm just kidding. Congratulations, Rose. That's awesome. I'm sure I'll see you today because I think you're at a closing right now. I don't know if you're on here. Rose, are you on here? Let me look. No, she's still at her closing. All right, so let's see. Ryan Van Loozen, from Title I, would you like to add a couple things title related?
Yeah, sure. How's it going, guys? Hope everybody's doing good today. I'm pretty much just jumping on the call just to kind of let you guys know that preferred realtor and one has asked me to sort of jump in as your account rep officially now. So I just want to make everybody aware of that who isn't, and just let you know that my door will always be open to you guys. I'm really excited.
Welcome, thank you,
rolling.
Ryan.
And, I just want you guys to know that our goal is to always make you guys look good. If I'm not making you look good, then I'm not doing my job right. So if there's anything that you guys want to let us know that we're not doing right, or, I hope that we're doing a good job for you guys. And I'm excited to work closer with you and see how things go. And we'll get this rolling.
Thanks, Ryan. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cool. All righty, Rue. Thank you, Ryan. It's awesome news.
Well, you know what, on our raffle, this has probably worked out how it was. Everybody thought, oh, Jeff and Annie, they're the only ones that are ever going to win. They haven't won anything yet. So
I didn't fix it either. I mixed them up. I swear. And their names are all in there. I counted this morning. That's funny. I don't know.
So you know what? So in addition to getting listings and, obviously your bottom line, you never know if you're gonna win. So get a listing, get your name in, and that's one more little tidbit for help there. So Pam, I do want to thank you. I think that's buyer and seller is a great idea, the digital things. We're doing whatever it can to help to promote you guys, and we'll continue to do so. So thanks again, Pam.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I was like, oh, this is gonna be easy. And then I started working on it. I'm like, well, so I just want to make it make sense and make it universal for all your buyers. And that's basically our goal. So, but that I'm giving myself a deadline of max 2 weeks, but my goal is a week. So we can start rolling out with that for the spring and summer market. So I think Mr. Mitchell is on the phone. Oh, no, he's not. There he is.
Hey. Hey, everybody, how you doing? As far as updates for mortgages right now, I don't have a whole lot. Rates have been, kind of steady the past couple of weeks. Everything's been going well. I do just want to let you know that I am here in the office over by Bruce Webb 2 days a week. I'm here on Tuesdays and Thursdays all day. So if there's anything that you ever need, feel free to stop in, ask questions. My cards are at the desk along with Harry's. Both of us work, 7 days a week, just like you guys. We're working over the weekends on Saturdays and Sundays as well. So if there's ever any questions you need, pre-approval's done, whatever the case may be, feel free to give us a call. We're definitely here to help and support you guys in any way that we possibly can.
Thank you.
Alrighty, Rue. That's awesome. Thanks, Dave. Okay, well, I will just start rolling right into, does anyone have any questions?
Not off the top of my head. I got lots of, just not about this right now.
Oh, good. Well, we can talk later.
Hey, Pam,
Yeah, go for it.
all the trainings that you reference, are they all in person in the office? The Wednesday, Thursday?
The Wednesday, Thursday, yeah.
Okay.
Unless they get like crazy busy, but for right now, it's pretty manageable. Everyone wears their masks. It's up front. It's all 4 conference rooms. We have a newer computer in the front, so it is a lot faster than our old ones. So they pop on that one and kind of show everyone around KV Core and stuff like that. Yeah, so those 2 are in person, correct. Until further notice, but right now we're just trying to keep them in person. It's just, it's not unfortunate, but it was just when we rolled out KV Core, doing it on Zoom was a little bit challenging because I just think some things translate in training better in person. So the people that have gone to the KV Core strategy session on Wednesdays, I think they've really gotten a lot out of it. Just because you can bring your computer, you can follow along with the bigger computer, you can ask questions. It's not like you're watching a video and you're trying to look at KV Core. I mean, everyone doesn't have 2 or 3 screens. So I think it's been really beneficial, and just don't be afraid to show up. I mean, I can tell who's logged in and who hasn't, and it doesn't matter. So just show up. And I just want everyone to at least utilize the program as much as they want or as little as they want, but it really, really is a good asset. I mean, the fact that your website's attached to it, when you put your contacts into it, in the simplest way to explain the contact thing is, let's say you put all your past clients in it, right? So we talk about hashtags all the time. So you would just say hashtag past client seller, hashtag past client buyer. And if you want to send mass text to all your past client buyers, you just filter that. They all pop up, you check all, you send your text, and you're on your way. It's pretty neat how it's set up, to be honest with you. So don't be afraid. Just please come in. Let's work together and get you started or get you moving or keep you going on that. And it's a great product. So long answer, yes, they're in person. So does anyone else have any questions? Cool. Okay. Without further ado, let's see who I can see here. I can't see everyone. I guess, you know what? I'll just start with Andy because we were talking about it last week and kind of came up with this or whatever. And then we can go on. Jeff, I'm going to call on you. whoever else, Melanie, if you want to chime in as well. I know Bruce said he has some little thoughts. I mean, anyone that wants to chime in of what's been working, getting these situations, your multiple offers accepted, will be helpful for the group. We're a great group of agents that help each other all the time. As everyone can see in our Facebook group, when anyone has a question or what have you, it's pretty neat to see. So Andy, if you want to go ahead, and then we can go on from there.
Guys, real quick, Andy, before I appreciate everybody's help. Once again, you guys are, I assume everybody's on our Facebook page. Everybody's been very helpful about if somebody has a question or needs an issue or something. And I really appreciate everybody chipping in and participating when everybody needs something. So thank you once again. Go ahead, Andy. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. So, Pam and I were talking the other day just regarding some of the multiple offers and the multiple offer situations. And I know from having some properties that have had, 1 or 2 offers, some that have had over 20, it can be very, very difficult on us on the listing side to really keep track of everything. So you as a representing a buyer, I can't stress this enough, but spell the appropriate language in the subject title of your email, because as we go back and we try to go through and find everything, if it's spelled wrong, sometimes we may miss it. I know Kimberly and myself are doing a demo program on our listings where we're kind of similar to what Fannie Mae did back in the day, but it basically directs you to an online portal where you have to upload all of your documents and everything online. And for me, it creates a spreadsheet that I can either forward over to my clients and do some other things too. But going through 15 or 20 of these offers and then having to go through individually and respond to everybody, certainly you want to make it as easy as possible for the listing agent to clearly articulate what your offer is and be able to go through all of that. I don't want to talk about everything that has worked here, and I'll let the other agents chime in too. But again, if you're not bidding in many cases over with guarantees, it's really, really difficult to even sniff some of these. Can't say it enough though that the highest offer is not the best offer in almost all cases. So don't think that just writing an offer with monopoly money is going to be enough to get the deal done, because it's probably not going to. I'll let the others chat.
All right, Mr. Jeffrey, if you'd like to comment, what's the background? Are those golf clubs?
They are golf clubs.
Oh, that's pretty cool. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I would second that with Andy, is just, the reality of the market that we're in. I mean, we had one this year, shocked me a lot, that we had like over 30 offers on this property that quite honestly, I felt like we were priced a little bit high in Redford. And even then it still sold for 10% over asking price. So I think, at least some of the things that I've been looking at and observing, and then trying to help, not just our my agents understand, but also as we look through things. I think an offer summary is super important. To Andy's point, like it is, like when you have 30 plus offers to review and you've set a highest and best deadline, I mean, it's hours before we've really done the due diligence to really look through all that stuff. I think I saw Cheryl put in the chat, building that personal relationship with the listing agent. I think that does make a difference, because, when we get offers and we know that we've got the ability to work with an agent that and trust, and they're working with a preferred mortgage person. I mean, and I know Mortgage One and David Mitchell. I mean, we've talked about like that. There's such a value to a preferred lender and things like that, because that lender, it's that race to the truth. So all of those things can really spell it out. My big suggestion as a little bit of a tip would be, if you're writing an appraisal guarantee, let's say you're writing a $20,000 appraisal guarantee, don't just send a pre-approval letter, send proof of funds that they have, not just like if they're putting 10% down, they need to show that they've got the 10% down. They've got the roughly 4% of purchase price for, closing costs, prepaids, escrows, reserves, as well as the money that they have that they're putting down to cover an appraisal gap. I think that is a very important aspect to things where now if you've sent over a well-organized offer, and then on top of that, you've also showed the evidence that your buyer is a very, very strong buyer. I think that matters a whole lot more, in my opinion, than a personal letter of the buyer situation. I'm not discrediting a personal letter. I would throw that at it as well. But I think if you can really show the financial fortitude that this client has and the ability to do that, then I think that's great. I think it's a little tougher if you're working with a buyer who doesn't have that financial fortitude to be able to do that. But, those are going to be some of the challenges that you have, going in it. But I definitely think an agent that is very highly communicative, really, even if I've never worked with them before, but they're really highly communicative and they've sent a really well-organized offer over and they've made my job a little bit easier as a listing agent, they at least will, rise up the possibilities of me encouraging that offer with a seller or to accept, just because of that mere fact that they seem to be a bit easier to work with and a bit more professional.
John, if I can kind of jump in on both what you and Andy said. Guys, we often talk about our reputation in the industry, and some people think it doesn't make any difference. Well, this market, it does make a difference. If you've dealt with agents that are difficult and whatnot, guess what the likelihood of getting through an offer? It's a lot easier when you deal with agents in a constructive way, as opposed to, like being a lawyer in a combative situation. You know what? A teaspoon of sugar goes a lot farther than a gallon of vinegar. So, remember, guys, your reputation is out there and it makes a difference in a long time. So please remember that. And in our office, I'm telling you right now, I've had a number of people tell us, guys, I swear to God, and they just told, I've never had a bad deal with an agent in your office. So I think that says a lot about you, and I hope we can continue that. So I appreciate it.
That's great, Jim. And one other thing that I've been starting to do a little bit more, and this is, I think, again, shaping expectations for our buyers. So like I just ran a search for homes in the Plymouth Canton School District between 350 and 400 that have sold in the last 90 days. And if you just look at a search like that, like maybe that's the price point that your client's writing an offer in. Take a look at it and see how the average list to sale price ratio is 101.6%. So let's just round that up and say most homes are selling on average in that price range over the last 90 days, 2% above their asking price. The highest one, when I look at it, it looks like it's 9% over asking price. And so I think that helps shape expectations with our buyers, especially people who think that they might still be able to go in at full price and go, well, it's a full price offer. Like, what more could they ask for? Well, look, in the last 90 days, we've had, X amount of homes sell, and you can even count it up and just say, I think in the last 90 days in the Plymouth Canton School District between 350 and 400, there was 26 homes that sold, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, only 8 of them. So that's about a third of the homes were under the asking price. So 2/3 of them were over the asking price. And I saw a graph that Lawrence Yoon had put on his LinkedIn profile that had homes in the month of March and in every state, how many homes sold above their asking price. And I think it was like Michigan, it was like 46% of homes sold above their asking price in the month of March. And I think that percentage is only growing because when I run this search, it pretty much every time, it almost works out to 2/3 of the properties are at or above asking price. So I think those are really important when you're shaping expectations for your clients, and something that I think I've at least used as of lately to understand the market a little bit better is just running those comparables on what's sold in the last 90 days.
I love all the stuff that you guys have shared. I know for me with my buyers, What's winning is a combination of a guarantee, if they can do that, but also the escalation. And the offer price doesn't have to be at the top. You can have a really healthy escalation that kind of drives it up to that. So that's worked really good for me. On the listing side, I really am annoyed when I get offers from agents and there's no detail. It's just a forwarded offer from DocuSign or Authentisign. I can't reach them by phone. They don't respond to text. It doesn't motivate me to work with them, even if they've got a good offer. So to the point, I think it was Jim that highlighted it, and Jeff, communication really is key. It really is key to making sure that you have a better shot on behalf of your client, because I know it matters on the listing side and on the buyer side. I just won a deal. We were in a multiple situation, but I was the only one that the agent was able to talk to. At least that's what she said. And so I think that did help us. So I love all of those points. I think it's all really, really good stuff. But on the buyer side, escalation and guarantee have been what has helped me win the offers.
I'll chime in a little bit real quick on the escalation clause. I know a lot of agents personally who do not like them, will not use them, will not deal with them. So it's kind of that the mindset, sharpen your pencil before you get there. And if you're not really willing as a buyer to make your what could be your strongest offer, go to whatever sales price, it can really turn off some sellers. At least I know from my own experience, some of my sellers will look at this and we'll explain this escalation clause to me, and then when I do, they're like, well, why didn't they just offer that to begin with? And they've turned down in some cases offers that were very similar because they went with the one who made the more aggressive offer to begin with. So while they can be useful in some cases, I would not use them as a relying factor to try to get your offer accepted. Have that discussion with your client. Hey, look, if we're at this number here and you find out that you don't get it by 1%, would you be mad? Yes or no? And if that answer is yes, just make your offer and then give it your best try. Because again, they may not always review that escalation clause.
Yeah, Andy, I agree with what you're saying, and Melanie, I also agree with what you're saying. I think both strategies can be used and used effectively. I think the key would be get a hold of that listing agent, and my team knows this. I tell them all the time: ask 2 questions. What's most important to your seller, right? I think that's an easy one. Everybody asks that question nowadays. But I think the extra question is, what's most important to you as the listing agent? And if you in hearing what they articulate, keep in mind, like as a listing agent, I mean, every one of my clients always asks, well, Jeff, what offer do you think we should take? So we are advising them. And so if you think of it from a standpoint as a buyer's agent, that listing agent is going to advise them on probably the best offer to take. And so why don't you write an offer that is then not just something that the buyer is looking for, but also that something the seller is looking for, but also something the listing agent would be happy to advocate for. And so in those questions, you can do follow-up questions like, hey, I was thinking about using an escalation clause. How do you feel about that? And if, to Andy's point, if they're like, yeah, just bring me your highest and best, don't do the escalation clause, then explain that to your client. This agent isn't going to want to use that escalation clause. It's in our best interest just to go big and go strong and just do this. Or if they're like, oh yeah, I'm happy to do an escalation clause, then great, then you can use that as a strategy. But I think having those dialogues is super important. I also know though that it's difficult sometimes because you are in these situations where you've tried to get a hold of the listing agent, can't get a hold of the listing agent. And then you're like, okay, how do I go about this? But sometimes that may be where, you throw a post up on the Facebook office page and say, hey, has anybody ever dealt with this listing agent before? Do you know if they like this strategy or that strategy better? And I'm sure there's somebody in the office that's probably worked with them, especially if it's one of the top agents around the area that's just hard to get a hold of.
I got a quick question. What is the percentage of offers that are not multiple offer situations? Do we have any?
I mean,
Jim, I'd probably say very, very few at this point. Very, very few. I mean, maybe some of the higher end stuff, like I've had a couple of them on like north of 800, 900,000 that we've had little bit of competition, but nothing like we're seeing in the 300-400 price range.
Well, now I will tell you this, guys, although it's rare, I don't deny it. There are still some people that don't want to deal with a bunch of people coming through the house on a thing. If they're elderly or whatnot, I'm telling you, we've sold 2 from our office page of people putting up listings that we've sold prior to that really hitting the market. And they were more than happy because they didn't want 20 people tracing through their house. They don't have anywhere to go. They don't feel comfortable with people coming in. And so please remember that, although, as I said, I know it's a rare situation, but keep that in mind and just keep moving forward. It's not easy right now, but we'll get there.
Those are all fantastic things that you guys are talking about. I just want to try and include a couple of people. Does anyone else have any questions or input? I know, Cheryl, that's what we hear a lot. I remember, and I know I talked about this a lot, like when we were in quarantine and stuff. It was hard to get things done and transactions. And, my best advice was, not make friends, but yeah, make friends with that listing agent. You guys are both trying to get to the closing table for your clients. You're the middleman. There's just trying to get along with someone and make the process smoother. And if they know that you're easy to work with and, they're going to have a smooth transaction. I've had a couple of deals accepted, and I know I wasn't the highest just because I was accessible. My communication skills were there. I was just very upfront and I was available. So, I think that goes a long way with, I know all of you, whoever you can't get a hold of the listing agent, how frustrated you could be. Just imagine if you're that listing agent trying to pick a buyer's deal and you can't even get a hold of the buyer's agent. So just keep that in mind. I think that's the personal relationship is key, is really important. So
I'd like to add just 2 things.
Sure.
There was the multiple offers on a house, cute little house in South Lyon, young agent, but very professional. And I called him up and I said, hey, what would it take? Kind of like what you said, Jeff, what would it take to get the deal? And just by talking to him, he said, thank you for calling me and talking to me. He says, I got a couple texts from an agent saying, hey, I sent you an offer, take a look at it. But at the end, he was really happy that we were working together, because you got to work together, whether you're the listing realtor or the buyer agent. You got to be able to work to whatever's going on. Plus we found radon, so we had to work that out too. But one other time I had an agent who, in fact, it was just recently. She the feedback was, well, I tried texting the agent and she never called me, and I'm thinking, I never got a text. Well, I text her and she was texting my landline. So I just said, hey, I said, we all make mistakes, no big deal. And you know what? We got the deal. She ended up writing on Denton. And so now we're working together and she's just so appreciative. She just says, oh, thank you so much. So even when you get a snippy, kind of snotty little realtor, you can flip it. You really can. It's just, like you said, Jim, it's like just a little bit of sugar can turn that vinegar into sugar. And now it's just working out really well.
Guys, I think during the past year and a half, we've dealt so much, not physically and or personally. Everything seems to be by email or whatnot, or text. And as people have gotten more accustomed to using that personal touch does seem to disintegrate some. So keeping that up, as I said, and everybody has pretty much confirmed, is always helpful. And I think it's helpful going forward. So keep that in mind when you're doing your business and with your clients as well. I can't tell how many people drop something off to them, or even with the new system, they think you're texting them individually. And it's something, and more people read text and email. It just makes a difference in contacting them and whatnot than in talking to them personally sometimes. So keep that in mind.
Hey, something to add here too, that I know is not necessarily part of this discussion, but we're not going to win every offer that we submit. Talk to the listing agent about, is it possible that my client could have a signed written backup offer? We've been pretty much trying to get a signed written backup offer on every one of our deals, so that if something does go haywire, we've got something to move towards right away, and we don't have to relist it or call a bunch of agents and say, hey, is your client still interested? et cetera, et cetera. Plus, from a listing agent side, I got these great offers because we're all competing to get it. Now, all of a sudden, if the deal falls apart and I got to go find another buyer, I may not have that same level of competition, and I might not be able to get the same level of great offers. So if I can get a signed backup offer, that I think that's always a key element as well. And as a buyer's agent, if you can be in that second position, I mean, it's not going to happen all the time, but man, if the deal falls through, now all of a sudden your client has something, that agent calls you and say, hey, the deal fell through. You guys are in position. It's like, great. Yeah, there may have been an inspection issue, but man, I've had deals fall apart for very fixable inspection issues before, and so things happen. You just never know. And so having that signed backup is, I think, a really good deal. So take advantage of it from a listing agent's perspective of getting, a second offer at least accepted. And as a buyer's agent, push for that and getting actually a signed one, not like just oh yeah, we'll call you if the deal falls. No. Let's just sign it. And I think that's a very strong thing to do in the market that we're in right now.
I wanted to say something. The last 3 offers that I've made, all 3 of the agents, the listing agents, when I said, oh, I use Mortgage One with Harry Palmitis or David Mitchell, all 3 of the people are like, oh, great, we love working with them. And so, for the new people who have just come onto us, they are preferred lenders for a reason, because they really work their butt off. And I'm so happy with, even though they're FHA and didn't get the house, I was still really glad with their responses to Mortgage One. So just an FYI for people. Good job.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah, just real quick, Pam, if I can add.
Oh, you're
on,
fine. I just want to see if anyone else, but you're fine.
Right. On the backup thing, like, honestly, getting a lot of offers, in itself is a challenge. And then if you do have something that goes bad, honestly, we're tired and don't feel like going back on market and getting another 30 offers to go through. So we're just going to go, honestly, at least I do anyway. I'm going to start rifling through the ones that I expressed or have sent backup offer, and I'm going to go to them first. Usually my sellers are fatigued and they don't want to go back on market or have to deal with being out of their house the whole time. So there really is a good benefit there of being in a backup position from that.
Guys, I got an appointment, believe it or not, so I want to wish everybody the best. Keep plugging. If you have anything, need anything, please feel free to reach out, and I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Hopefully my appointment goes good. Bye-bye.
All right. Let me see. We have a few minutes left. I don't see Rick on yet, so I don't want to single anyone out. I'm just going down those. Hey, Josie, do you have any tips or tricks when how you're getting offers accepted and stuff like that in the multiple offer situation? Sorry. There you go. Perfect. Where it says mute, there's a little arrow. You can go to like a different speaker or microphone. See where it says mute and then there's like an up arrow and then it says like select microphone, like maybe pick the one in the middle. Okay. Well, she's figuring that out. Let me look. Does anyone else have any comments or ways they've been getting things done? Let's see who else is here. I see Melissa on here. Anyone else?
Pam, I think one thing that as buyer agents, and we write that escalation clause and, we'll go this much over the highest. I think in the remarks or where you can add extra verbiage, I always add that listing realtor to provide all addendums that go along with the offer that we supposedly beat out. Because I keep thinking about a deal that I wrote 2 years ago. Of course, that's the one you always think of. But, and she just sent me like the front page of the PA and it was FHA. But I don't know whether or not Were they asking for concessions? Were they asking? So I just think that that's really a good thing to add to that escalation, saying that the listing realtor to provide all documents, including addendums with the PA, so that you really do know that you beat that offer out. I mean, my clients were happy. They got a real cute little house, but I always think that, you know, that FHA we beat out, was it truly that price? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah.
Nope, I
I
totally-
actually do put that on my escalation clauses, that the, oh, hold on. We're having some feedback here. It threw me off. Sorry about that. That'll escalate X number of dollars over the highest net offer. Net offer to be defined as, you know, sales price minus any seller concessions, and that they do provide the whole PA to me. So I haven't run into that, but I was thinking on that. And I actually got one accepted yesterday. We were one of 15 offers. And I've had several conversations with the listing agent. He just reiterated that just how much I communicated to him, my level of, you know, attention to detail. And, you know, we all competition, you know, had the same things as we did, appraisal guarantees, those kinds of things. But he's like, I knew, he's like, you just kept conveying, like, you know, how, you know, serious your buyers were. And they were, you know, he's like, one thing that you did that really stood out to me. He's like, two things. I had my inspection was a pass fail. And so my buyers felt comfortable to go ahead and order the appraisal right when the offer was accepted. So we'll get to the closing table that much faster. And then the other thing was that listing agent had the HOA docs online. It was a condo, but I reached out to the HOA rep who was on the MLS ticket and got the HOA financial. So we were able to remove that as a contingency when we presented our offer. He's like, you just thought of everything. And he's like, you were so attention detailed. So he's like, that's why your offer just, you know, really stood up, because there was 3 that were neck and neck. And one of them was a cash offer that we beat out. And he goes, the other conventional, he's like, I've done several deals with them and I've got a great, you know, working relationship with, you know, and they're pretty mad at me. So it's, you know, it's sometimes it's those little things where a lot of our competition is thinking the same as far as the appraisal guarantees and stuff like that. How else can we set ourselves apart? So.
Awesome. Congrats. That's fun.
I
I just want to add to that real quick. I know we talk about it in our team meetings, but I just want to share the importance of just staying positive throughout this process. Anytime I go into, you know, writing an offer for a client, whether it's a multiple offer situation, I just go in with the mindset that we're going to win that house. And, you know, I just use very assumptive language when I'm talking to the agent, like looking forward to working with you. You know, we're going to do our inspection on this day, and just really, you know, communicating well to the seller's agent, and making it a pleasant experience for them as well. Because I understand it's exhausting on both ends when you're writing offer after offer. And as a listing agent, you know, you have to review 20 contracts in a day. And I just try to be, you know, that person that can, you know, add a little bit more sunshine in that situation as best I can. So I know we didn't really talk about that, so I just wanted to share.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's actually really good information. Thank you both for that. I don't see Mr. Rick yet. So if anyone else wants to add any, maybe of their success stories of an accepted offer they just got accepted, or an offer they just got accepted, I'm sorry. That would be kind. I'm waiting for Bruce. I know he does his live thing every Tuesday at 12:45. Let me see. Hey, how about Mr. Olson? Did you want to add anything? I know I'm kind of just pointing people out, but I'm just looking through the thing. I don't know if he's just listening or what. So.
Pam, I'll add, just to reiterate something that was said, was I had a deal where we had 6 offers on it, and 4 of the 6 were all neck and neck, right, like really close to each other. And I had reached out to the agent, left her a message, texted her, one of the agents, and never heard back from her. And And so we ended up going with this other offer, which is a really good offer. But then that agent finally got around to calling me and was like, well, what's going on? And I said, I called you, I texted you. No, oh, I've been having phone issues, yada, yada, yada. And it's like, well, sorry. She goes, oh, we would have done more. And I said, well, I called you, you know, and so you got, unfortunately, nobody to blame but yourself. So I think it's obviously been said, and I'm clearly beating a dead horse because you're trying to fill dead air here. But the reality is that it communication with the agent is super crucial. And if you know you're having some sort of issue technology wise, then I mean, heck, I'll have agents Facebook message me, you know, if they need to try to get in touch with me, you know, like anything you can do to connect with the agent, do just to try to leave that lasting impression or to stay communicative in the transaction.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Also, you know what, also, it's really important that you communicate with the buyer. You know, the buyer agent, you know, they may have put the offer in and maybe they were, you know, we're really fighting for our buyer. But if you don't let the buyer know your step-by-step action, they can get really frustrated, because I've heard that, you know, well, you know, my agent never, you know, I put an offer in and then my agent never called me to let me know what was going on. So I always tell my buyers that, listen, as I know anything, you will know. If you don't hear from me, then you know I haven't heard anything, but I will be pursuing them to make sure we get some kind of answer. And again, try to build that rapport with that listing realtor. Because like you say, Jeff, Andy, I mean, you guys get a million offers sometimes on these houses. And so it's like, if they all start to look the same, who stands out? And it gets down to the agent that, can you work with this agent? I mean, are they, you know, going to help you and get this over the finish line, or are they going to be a pain in the neck and be demanding certain things that they should not? I mean, I know you fight for the buyer, but at the same time, again, if you can't work with that listing realtor and the listing realtor feels like as though they can't work with you, you end up, you know, shooting yourself in the foot and hurting your buyer, you know, chance of getting that home. So.
Cheryl, you're right though, 100%, because I mean, it's literally been like, everything being equal, we sometimes make decisions just based on who the lender is or who the buyer's agent is.
Yeah. Yes.
And so it is so important to stress that, you know, like, hey, this is my preferred lender. And it's so important for you to just be easy to work with. I mean, I had one agent who started chewing me out after he had sent an offer. And I was at my kid's soccer game, literally called him as soon as I could. And he's like, and I'm telling him, hey, we have multiple offers and we're going to be doing a highest and best. And he got all upset. Like, you couldn't have like answered your call, like your phone an hour ago and told me this. Now I got to redo the offer. And it's like, okay, probably not going to take this guy's offer. And I get he's frustrated. He's upset. The market is crazy. I get that it wasn't that he was really mad at me. He was really just mad at the whole situation. But look, your reactions matter. It really does. It shows your true colors and your true character. So being easy to work with, and especially working with a preferred lender is sometimes how we're choosing which offer to take over another, because all things being equal, you know, I'm going to push that for sure.
Yeah. One of my recent sales as a buyer agent, she's a seasoned listing realtor. She knows me. And she knows Pam, you know, and she says, you two are the reason why I accepted your offer over everybody else. So it's you know, your reputation. It's funny because I always tell people the real estate world really is a very small world, and your reputation does precede you. So how you treat everybody, even when they're just snotty, it's like, hey, you know,
Don't be a snot.
right. I say that under my breath.
I think it's not. All right. Well, that was an awesome conversation. I was not worried about the time, but I was like, well, maybe we'll run out of things to talk about, but we didn't. So that's good. But I see Mr. Linnell on here, which is awesome. So I just want to thank you, Rick, for joining us at our meeting today. Your your meetings are one of the best meetings of the year. I'll just tell you that, because you're very informative. You keep us up to date, you keep us in line, and you do a really good job. So thank you again for taking time out of your busy day and answering some questions that our agents had. And then, and not to throw you off guard or anything, but if you had any time at the end, if someone missed or didn't send me something, I'm sure it won't be that crazy. But if you have any time at the end after you're done, that'd be great if you could answer a couple more. So. But without further ado, thank you again for coming, and here is Rick.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having me. So you want me to just go bang, bang on the questions that I was providing, correct?
Yeah.
All right, I'll just jump into it. Pam, you can decide, but I'm fine with people asking questions throughout my talking.
Okay.
It's better if it's related to what I'm talking about, but I'm okay with anything, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, I am. I just want to make it, because Zoom, I mean, we're all used to it kind of, but maybe if you guys have a question related to it, I'll just keep note on the chat and then we can kind of make it a little bit organized that way. So, but
Is there a particular amount of time that I should hold myself to?
no, I mean, 5. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, everyone's looking forward to this. So we just want to get some of the stuff done, and yeah, you're good.
Okay.
We'll be fine.
So the first question posed to me, if a tenant is renting month to month, parenthetically, let's say that their lease is up and the landlord has agreed to lease month to month because the person is in the process of buying a home. Is there a maximum amount that a landlord can charge as a premium? So first thing I would say is that the landlord doesn't have to agree to month. A lease, when the term expires, automatically is month to month by operation of law. Either party can terminate that month to month lease with a 30-day advance notice, but it is month to month. Most leases will have a holdover provision that says if it goes month to month, the lease amount will be 125% or 150% of the most recent monthly rental rate. As a technical matter, can a landlord increase the $1,200 rent to $12,000 a month? Yes. However, if a contract is deemed unconscionable, which just means to shock the conscience of a court, the judge, it will be unenforceable. In my example, 1,200, 12,000, a judge will not enforce it. You come to court and you say, well, wait a minute. I said it was gonna be 12,000. They weren't out. I gave them notice, got to pay me 12,000. And the court's gonna say, Mr. Linnell, sure. I'm gonna tell you what, I might give your client 1,400, 1,500. Although some judges might be so irritated with that move that they might say, no, it's 1,200. You say, but judge, I said it was 12,000 and I gave notice, proper notice. I said, okay, appeal it. Well, but judge, then I have to appeal it and it's cost money and time. Say, yeah, so what? Appeal it. So yes, it can be raised, but you need to, as a landlord, you need to appreciate that if you raise it by some unbelievably dramatic amount and you can't support why it should be worth that much greater amount, because there could be the rare instance where you let someone stay at $1 million house and it was, $1,500 a month and now it really should be 7,000. But for that ridiculous fact pattern, a judge is going to knock it down. I would also, and this comes up with the moratorium on evictions, we see that a lot of people say, well, why are these evictions going on? I thought, they were prevented. Evictions based on COVID, there have been restrictions in place. However, if a lease expires, then you can evict someone based on the expiration of the lease. Even though the motivation might be because of the money, if you follow the eviction proceedings for termination based on the end of the tenancy, like a 30-day notice for termination versus 7-day notice, you can still evict, people can still be evicted. Next is, below is an example of an addendum explaining that the buyer will not be petty and ask for minor things to be repaired after the inspection, but still protecting our buyer. Thoughts? I'm having a little tough time reading it. Let's see. Buyer agrees to waive.
Let me see it. I got to read it myself. Sorry.
So
I think that was Retta's question.
yeah. So I I appreciate what you're trying to do, which is say, we're not going to try and nickel and dime you. And maybe it's not fair to answer it based on our current market, but in our current market, I don't care as a seller because everybody wants my house. And I don't even know which house we're talking about, but whatever it is, someone wants it. Lots of people want it. So if somebody wants to get queued on an inspection and try and hit me for little tiny things, I'm just going to say no and move on. And in my experience, buyers don't do that because they want the house. But in general, there's nothing negative about it. I think it really depends on the buyer, because as said in this section, that was provided to me, the buyer can still walk for any reason. So the idea of I won't hit you for anything petty, I get it, but in all practicality, generally speaking, the buyer can walk because they're not satisfied with the inspection, period. So there's nothing negative about this clause. I think it depends on the party reading it, and maybe some of the tail end of the conversation I caught when I got on, which is, how well do you know the listing agent if you're representing the buyer, and vice versa? And yeah, they're going to follow this clause, or who knows if they're going to follow it, or yeah, this clause doesn't mean anything with them because they always bail on inspection. So there's nothing negative about it, but I don't know. You would know as a practical matter from a sales standpoint if that has a positive effect on getting your offer accepted. But as from a legal standpoint, it doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Yeah, I think it just had more to do with not what's the correct verbiage, but yeah, I mean, what's the correct verbiage of we're not going to tell you to fix and repair like the leak in the sink and whatever, but if something larger happens like mold or foundation issues, and if it exceeds a certain amount of money, then they are still going to be able to walk away and get their EMD back. I mean, I think it's just, I mean, everyone's been having such a difficult time trying to get stuff accepted, but they're still trying to protect their buyers at the end of the day. And if something major happens, it's not like, oh, well, just the sellers are just like, deal with it if you want to buy the house. I think that's kind of where the motivation was. And I'm trying to get a hold of the person that.
Well, I mean, in this market, I'm sure you see sellers are like, yeah, I realize there's water coming in the basement. So what? If you don't want it, I have backup offer. So, I guess, again, there's nothing negative about it. I would want to make sure that my buyer client understands that, you're effectively saying if there are things minor under 2,000, which depending on who you are, that's not necessarily minor, but you're effectively agreeing to waive it. And if you say to your client, oh, don't worry though, we can still get out of it. Well, then I don't like that. So to me, it's, again, there's nothing wrong with it. I would just want to make sure my buyer client understands what we're saying, what we're trying to communicate to a seller to hopefully move us up or distinguish us from another offer that might be for similar amounts. I don't know if that addresses that, but you have to let me know.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I can interject, we
Sure.
actually asked that question, but I myself this weekend had multiple offers on one of my properties, and some folks said that we're doing pass fail on the inspection. Some of them said we're going to limit it to 1,500. If I did happen to take one of the ones that said I'm going to limit it to 1,500, can I specify more clearly that either A, it would be to items that were not visually evident during the preliminary inspection or from when they first saw the property? How do I more closely narrow it down so I'm not getting nitpicked on, oh, your roof is old, now I want more money off type of a thing, and then I have to go back on market or go back to backup offers? How can I narrow that in?
Well, I think it becomes very challenging. I mean, I like the idea, Andy, of saying, that it's limited to items that would not have been visually noticeable at the time of the original walkthrough. But I mean, I don't know how, to me, it's subjective. Even though it sounds like an objective standard, it's subjective. So I don't know how you hold someone to that. And if someone says, I'm not going to buy, are you really going to get into a tussle? I mean, we can talk later about battling over an EMD, but if the buyer doesn't want to buy, the sale isn't happening to that buyer. And you can battle over the EMD, but to me, I guess, and this might be a simplistic way of looking at it because I'm not listing and selling homes, but to me, I want to make the inspection happen quickly, and I want a thumbs up or thumbs down quickly. And if you want to tell me it's not acceptable because you decided you don't like the wallpaper upstairs, or because the foundation is failing or anywhere in between, fine. That I'm okay with that. Just make it happen fast. That's my thought.
Yeah.
Next question. Can you legally waive part or all of your commission to make your buyer's offer more attractive? And the answer is yes. You absolutely can. And you don't have to do it for everyone. You can do it on a case-by-case basis. But it's totally permissible under license law.
And I guess the second part of that question now, sending this to you yesterday and thinking about overnight is there a correct, I guess, legal way to do that? Or I mean, it's just an addendum, quite simply signed by the broker?
Yes, but one thing I'll say about addendums.
Yeah.
Is many addendums I read are insufficient to stand up in court. Now, luckily, most addendums aren't challenged in court. So it generally isn't an issue, but when it is an addendum, you want to make it crystal clear as the author, or if you're on the other side, who's receiving it, crystal clear as to what the parties are agreeing to and why. And part of that is including what I refer to as recitals. I shouldn't say what are commonly referred to as recitals. And that is, how did we get here? Which is that, for instance, there was an inspection. The inspection revealed many things. It's dated so-and-so from Inspector Bob. The parties have negotiated. The seller agrees to a credit of $7,000 based on all of the items found in the inspection. Something like that. You want it, whatever the addendum is. And it becomes particularly important in appraisal contingencies or accelerator contingencies. That why are they doing this? What is happening? What are the parties agreeing to? Because what you want is the addendum to be binding. And I have been to court with addendums that people write and the court finds, well, this isn't clear. It conflicts with the existing contract. And there's nothing in the addendum, for instance, that says if there is a conflict between this first addendum and the purchase agreement, this first addendum shall control, which should be in every addendum. But I don't see it frequently. If it's the fifth addendum, it should say if there's a conflict between the purchase agreement, first, second, third, fourth addendum, this fifth addendum shall control. So the idea is to make it very clear, because if the courts find an ambiguity, and sometimes they want to find an ambiguity, they will. So the idea is to make sure there is no ambiguity. Next question. Can a buyer make multiple offers on more than one property at the same time? So just to be clear, they're not making multiple offers on the same property, they're making on various properties. And the answer is yes. You can make as many offers as you want. Is that the best practice? As an agent, that doesn't sound like a lot of fun, but I could see, practically speaking, making an offer on 2 or 3 properties. If an offer is accepted, that offer is now a binding contract. There's got to be communication and acceptance, or communication of the acceptance, I should say. Oral revocation is permitted. So you send out 3 offers and one is accepted and your client's like, I'll buy any 3. These are all ones that I want. As soon as the one is accepted and you've received communication of that acceptance, then you can call and revoke the other 2 offers orally. You do not have to do it in writing. Do I think it's a good idea to do it in writing? Yes, but I would immediately pick up the phone or immediately send a text and say it's rescinded. And then I immediately follow up with something in writing, like an email. But you can make more than one offer at one time. Next, can a buyer use the reason of having cold feet during the inspection period and still receive their EMD back? Well, I guess what I would say about that is, what does the inspection clause say? Some inspection clauses say there has to be an unsatisfactory inspection from a third-party professional inspector. Others say the inspection is permitted by the buyer and must be acceptable in their sole and exclusive determination, meaning they can pull the plug for any reason. If the language states that it's got to be subject to an unsatisfactory inspection from a third-party inspector, well, then cold feet isn't going to fly. I don't recommend, by the way, saying cold feet to anyone in any context, but it's really about what what the terms of the contract permit. But there are people that do the cold feet. It happens. So what does the language in the particular agreement state? Let's see. The ever popular question, can I sell, it says, can I seller relist their property, or can a seller, I'm guessing, relist their property if the buyer has made it clear in writing that they are not proceeding with the sale while the EMD is in dispute? And the answer is yes. Let's take it a step further. The buyer says, I'm not buying. They say it orally, or their agent says it. That is a revocation, or the offer has been revoked. I'm not proceeding. After that, the seller can sell on. You can immediately put it back on the MLS. Now, as a practical matter, as a broker, as a manager, do I want it in writing? Absolutely, I want it in writing. Why? Because then I don't have to worry about trying to prove it in court if that's where this ends up somehow. But to be clear, as far as the law goes, any revocation or termination, I'm not going forward. I don't like this house anymore. Seller's a jerk. I lost my job. I broke up with my boyfriend. What? I don't, doesn't matter. Just, I'm not. It doesn't have to have a reason supporting it. I'm not terminates the contract. It's a breach. Unless it's supported by a contingency, it's a breach, but the contract is over at that point. The seller can sell on. The fact that there isn't a mutual release doesn't prevent the seller from selling. The fact that the earnest money deposit hasn't been released does not prevent the seller from selling. Because let's talk about it practically. Let's say that it was required that a mutual release be signed. Well, that would mean that a seller, strike that, a buyer that gets cold feet says, yeah, I don't want to buy anymore because, well, I just don't know if I really want this house. I don't know if it's for me. And the seller says, well, okay, you got to sign this mutual release. And of course, you don't have a contingency. You're saying you're just not sure. So I get the $5,000 earnest money deposit. And the buyer says, oh, no, I'm not going to agree to that. And the seller says, yeah, but I got to have a mutual release. Otherwise, I can't sell my home. Well, that would be empowering the bad actor. The buyer that's breached would now have extra power or leverage because the seller needs that mutual release. And that's why the law doesn't require it. If the buyer says, I'm not buying, even if it's not a breach, the seller gets to sell on. Now, a mutual release is a great idea because it buttons everything up. You don't have to worry about any fighting. So always try to get a mutual release. But if the buyer doesn't have a contingency to avail themselves of, they just don't want to do it. The earnest money deposit is a contractual fight, a breach of contract fight. And that can occur right then and there. That can occur 2 years from now. It has nothing to do with the actual sale of the home.
Okay,
Any
so
questions?
just to reiterate, and just because I do get a lot of questions on this, and it doesn't, the purchase agreement, let's say you accept another offer after the person decided not to sell, does it have to state it's not subject to the mutual release of the previous purchase agreement?
It does not have to state that, but just make sure we're talking about the same fact pattern. The buyer has said, I'm not going to buy. A mutual release is not required. Now, if you say, look, I don't know, this buyer's squirrely, they say that they're out, and then I got a text, an hour later said they're in. Would it be wise to put in purchase agreement number 2 that it's contingent upon a mutual release being obtained within the next 30 days? And if not, then the seller can declare the purchase agreement null and void? Yes, that's a very wise thing to do, but it is not required at all. And oftentimes, at least in my experience, when the buyer says I'm out, they have no problem saying them out. When you send the confirming email, it says, this shall confirm our conversation in which you said that your client is no longer be a buyer. The other agent says, yes, confirmed. And even if they don't, then they have this email. If they try to come back 3 days later and say, oh yeah, I didn't know about that. I wasn't sure. I don't know what you're talking about, but it's back on. Well, in court, the court tries to figure out who's telling the truth. It would look like the seller / listing agent's telling the truth because they sent this email, references conversation, and dead air for 3 days, and then coming back and what does the agent say? Oh, we didn't talk. We didn't say that. I don't know, but Mutual lease is absolutely not required.
Thank
Does that
you.
answer that question?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. What would we recommend to a realtor if they are in a short sale situation as to how to handle it? Agents can do their own short sales. I think it creates a lot of work with no extra pay, but it can be done. We still do short sales, so I can tell you that they still happen. Some banks are easier than others to deal with. And this is probably a selfish statement, but I would say you should use somebody, a third-party processor, to do the short sale for a couple of reasons. One, it eliminates any legality issues about dealing with the lender. Two, you don't have to do any extra work, which isn't quite true because you're still gonna have to do extra work, I'm sure, counseling your client, but you don't have to do the extra work of dealing with the bank and not being paid for it. We still do short sales. I don't know if anyone else still does. They might. We do it on a contingent basis. We charge $3,500, which is paid to us if the short sale is approved and the closing takes place. The majority of the time, which is not all the time, the bank pays some or all of our fee. We know in advance on the approval letter, we give it to the client. The client knows, and the client could say, I don't want to pay any part of your fee, Rick, and so I'm not going forward because it says right here I got to pay $1,000. That's never happened to us, but to be clear, the seller has that right. Are you guys seeing short sales?
Bruce?
Well, it's just with the pandemic, I think we should probably prepare ourselves for a little bit of it with for forbearance. I'm not saying that there's going to be a lot because I think we're in a better shape than what we were back in 2006, 2008, but there's going to be some that pop up on the market. And one of the things when I was back in 2008, 2006, I always wanted to get an attorney involved because I think there's two processes going on. One is the real estate, and that's what I feel I'm good at, is marketing the property. But the homeowner is asking for a debt relief, and gets into a legal aspect, I think. So that's where you want to really bring in a real estate attorney, I think, to get involved, to make sure that the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, because I think a lot of people back in 2008, 2006 walked away from their homes and they still owe that money out there. They didn't really take care of business, I don't think so.
Well, probably not surprisingly, I agree with you, Bruce. One thing that I would mention is that the release language in the short sale, if the buyer, strike that, if the seller's not released from the debt itself, the short sale has little to no value. The whole concept is, I'm going to sell this house for market value. You don't have to do anything, bank, except agree to accept this lesser amount. I'll get nothing as seller. And in return, bank, you're going to release me from the unpaid portion of that mortgage. Well, if that letter doesn't state that clearly, there is no benefit in my mind in a short sale. And I'd hate to have an agent trying to help someone, because that's really what it is, because you don't get paid for it. So it's really only done to assist a homeowner who's in trouble. But if somehow the agent misinterpreted the language as a full release, when in fact it wasn't, when that seller gets sued, they're going to go to an attorney for bankruptcy or to defend it. And that attorney is going to say, well, let me see that release letter. And they say, well, it says it doesn't release you. Why'd you sign it? My agent said to do it. Even, of course, sometimes when the agent didn't say to do it. And so it can put an agent / a broker in a precarious situation.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of brokers that aren't in business anymore because of what they were doing back then too. So
that might be.
I currently have one that's actually it's a reverse mortgage between family members. So they've had a home that's been in the family for about 50 years, and the bank wants them to treat it as a short sale.
Well, in a reverse mortgage, there's no obligation to pay.
Right.
So it's a non-recourse debt, so they can't come after the estate. I've had people approach me on reverse mortgages, and I say, we're happy to do it, but you know, to me, there's got to be some value to the party doing it. Doesn't have to necessarily be money in their hand, but in your case, Florence, maybe it's about making sure we sell it to another family member so the house stays in the family. And that that would make perfect sense to me, if those are the facts.
Yes, that's what's going on.
Okay. That's all the questions I have. So now I'm going to entertain questions, or I'm going to just make up questions.
I think on Florence's question there though too is a lot of the short sales that I had, you had to be arm's length away from the transaction. So if it's a family member, that might not happen.
That's correct, Bruce. Oftentimes that is not permitted. And I'm glad you brought that up. Although I would suggest it is possible in a reverse mortgage because there is no recourse against the debtor or the debtor's estate if they've passed away. So a bank might be more inclined, as long as they feel comfortable that the value or sale price is commensurate with the value, the bank might very well be inclined to allow a relative to purchase it. And in that scenario with a reverse mortgage, you have a little bit of leverage that you might not have in a traditional short sale. And that is that if whoever has the letters of authority or whoever's the successor trustee in the trust, if it's owned by a trust, that person could decide to do nothing. Well, the reverse mortgagee, their only recourse is to foreclose and get the property. But you're saying to the reverse mortgagee, or behind door number 2, we could sell it right now and we'll cooperate. You got to sell it to our relative. Now, I'm not suggesting that the reverse mortgagee is going to allow a house that's worth 150 to sell for 100, but a house that's worth 150, they might let go for 140, 137.5. You know, there's because of avoiding these hurdles. So it is possible, but your point is still valid, and that is generally must be arm's length.
Right.
There was one more question, by the way, I forgot, or I didn't recognize. Should I move on to that question? I think that's a yes.
Sorry, yeah.
Can you discuss the types of deeds and how the names appear on the deed? All right. So how many forms, by show of fingers, how many forms of ownership do we have in Michigan? This is participatory. Bruce?
4.
All right. 4 is the right answer. Can you name the 4?
Yes, Bruce.
You're on a roll, Bruce.
It's your question.
Hey, I got the first question right.
Bruce, you're such a teacher's pet.
I only had 4 fingers. That's why I used 4. Well,
Yes.
we have joint conveyance, right?
Okay, I'll give you credit for that.
Okay, and then I forget what the husband and wife are called.
Rights of survivorship.
Depends on the
Yeah,
couple.
rights of survivorship. Thank you. Pam. Okay,
Any more?
the common.
Okay.
Yeah, I have one, if I can add. We ran into one just the other day on my listing, where a pool was involved. And obviously this time of year, we couldn't do a pool and pool escrow, which is what we did. In this particular case, we agreed to a new pool liner, which we had prepaid for, to have that installed and then to de-winterize it. But because in this particular instance, we had to remove the water in order to put a new liner in, the buyer now wants to pay or have the seller pay for water installation for the pool. And my seller does not, or did not want to, because it's a well and they just filled it up with the hose. So we had a big fight regarding that. And so just for sake of closing, we agreed to some additional monies for water, but were we wrong in order to do that, or did we do the right thing just because we had to simply make it be available for de-winterization?
Well, I don't have a pool, so I don't know. I'm no expert, but if I understand correctly, Andy, there was nothing in the addendum regarding the pool that required that it be filled or have water in it when it's sold.
We agreed to de-winterize it, so there would have to be water present in there. But in this particular case, like I said, it's on a well, so the seller would just fill it up with his hose at no charge. And now basically we're spending $1,500 to have water brought in immediately, which is where the fight was.
Well, so you would have to fill it up with water and I would say if it went to court, the court would say, well, it's got to be filled up before the sale happens. I mean, that, even though it might not say that, that's clearly implied in the agreement. So I think your client would have had to, plus for $1,500, if it's a house and pool, I'm guessing we're talking about a nice house. For $1,500, I'd keep the deal on course.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, because of COVID, they're not able to get to the pool until June, and our closing date was just last week. So again, we closed just for sake of closing, but I didn't know if we really had any legal position to say, screw you, fill it up with your damn hose and save us the $1,500, or we just were kind of.
Why couldn't you fill it up with a hose beforehand?
Because they had to put a new liner in. The new liner's not available until June. So in order to take the liner in, you have to remove all the water out.
And
then put the liner in, and then fill it back up, and then do the plumbing.
Well,
test.
okay, that's different then. Then I'd say no. There's no requirement that we have to fill it up with water. I don't think a court would make you, but you don't want to go to court for $1,500.
Yeah, well, in this case, again, you can't de-winterize the pool to get the plumbing up and running without it being full. So this is all going to be done 2 months down the road. So we just put another $1,500 in escrow just to make it be able to close, because it was all coming down to the last minute. So just kind of curious.
I think from a business decision, that's the right decision to make.
Okay.
All right, you got us off track on our ownership. Let's go back to our ownership. So we have tenants by the entireties. That's the husband and wife answer. We have tenants in common. That's the common answer. We have joint tenants, and we have joint tenants with full rights of survivorship. So let's start with tenants by the entireties. It is only available to a married couple, period. No matter how committed you are in a relationship, not relevant, must be married. The benefits of tenants by the entireties is if there's a creditor against one spouse, that creditor cannot get to the property, period. And if that creditor, if the spouse that has the obligation to the creditor passes away, title automatically rolls over and becomes vested in the surviving spouse. So if I had a bunch of debt, I pass away, my wife owns the house free and clear. That creditor, they could come after anything that I own, but not that house. It is the default form of ownership if a deed says husband and wife. So it doesn't have to say tenants by the entireties. If it says a husband and wife, it is the default form of ownership. Next, tenants in common. That is our default form of ownership in the state of Michigan. So unless it says, Mr. Smith, a husband, and Mrs. Smith, a wife, then it's tenants in common. Tenants in common, each side or each owner has their own respective ownership interest. They have the right to co-occupy the property. They have the right to force a sale. So if one party wants to sell and the other doesn't, or if there's 10 parties and one wants to sell and the others don't, the one party can force a sale. Might take going to court, but you'll force a sale. If I own a property of tenants in common and I pass away, it goes to my heirs. The ownership does not transfer to the surviving co-owner or owners. It goes to my heirs. Whether it goes to probate or I own it in a trust, etc. Those are secondary issues, but it doesn't change the fact that my ownership goes to my heirs. Any questions so far? Okay, we'll keep going. Next, we have joint tenants. Now, joint tenants is something that we don't see very often. And in fact, I write a lot of cohabitation agreements, which, by the way, if you buy a property with somebody and they're a significant other and you're going in together, you should absolutely 100% have a cohabitation agreement. A cohabitation agreement will deal with what is each party contributing to the purchase? What is each party going to contribute during the ownership? How can either party break the ownership? Those are critical pieces. But so I had a couple, they said, we're going to buy it together. We're committed to each other, but we're not going to be married for various reasons. And we want to talk about, having a cohabitation agreement. I said, great. We go through all the different questions. I write it up for them. They said, okay, now, Rick, we want to know what form of ownership. And I said, well, it depends on what you're trying to achieve. And I went through the whole discussion with them. And the upshot was, look, if one of us passes away and we're still in this relationship, we want the other to get the property. But, if the relationship for some reason doesn't survive, we want the ability to break, the ownership and force one to buy out the other or just sell the property outright. I said, great, you want joint tenants because joint tenants is breakable by any owner. But if it's not broken and one owner passes away, it goes to the other owner. They say, great, Rick, thanks. So they call their title company. They tell them, they call back and they say, Rick, you said joint tenants, right? I said, uh-huh. Did you add any more words like with full rights to survivorship or anything like that? I said, no, I didn't. They said, well, the title company said they're not familiar with that form of ownership. I said, oh, wait a minute. So did I have a brain cramp or something? Did I say something wrong? So I said, would you talk to our title company? I said, of course. So I called the title company. I speak to this woman and I say, yeah, my clients would like joint tenants. And she said, you mean joint tenants with full rights to survivorship? I said, no, joint tenants. She said, well, I'm not familiar with that form of ownership. Is that a form of ownership? And she was very nice. And I said, yes, it's one of the 4 forms of ownership. And she said, can I call you back? I said, sure. So she calls me back about 15 minutes later. She said, I talked to our underwriter. I did not know that joint tenants was a form of ownership. I've been doing this for 15 years. It's never come up. Everyone does joint tenants form with full rights to survivorship or tenants in common or tenants by the entireties. The point is that a lot of people don't realize that form of ownership exists. It makes a lot of sense if you want someone to inherit, as long as you're on good terms with them, really. And you can break it if you're not on good terms with them. Let's talk about the last form, joint tenants with full rights to survivorship. It's just like joint tenants in that you own an undivided interest in the property, and that if you die, the survivor gets the property. But when you add with full rights to survivorship, as a general rule, it is unbreakable. You get sideways, you're a couple and you get sideways with each other, and one says I want to sell and the other doesn't, it doesn't sell. 2 friends go in and live like roommates, one wants to sell and one doesn't, it doesn't sell, period. Now there are some exceptions to it. They're unique exceptions, and in certain circumstances, those exceptions can work. It's known as a constructive trust. And that's where one party promises something to another in return for being put on the deed. So the classic example is, I will take care of you. So I'm elderly. Let's say I'm 70 years old and I have a nephew who's 30. And the nephew says, if you put me on the deed, Uncle Rick, I will take care of you to your dying days. And I say, okay, great. And I put my nephew on my deed. And then my nephew is nowhere to be found. I can go to court and break it. It's not easy, but if I can prove the facts as I just stated them, the nephew will come off my deed. What's important to note is that people will oftentimes try to come up with a will substitute, I call it, and they'll try to pick a form of ownership that will accomplish what they want if they pass away. And they do it without counsel of a realtor, which generally speaking, a realtor shouldn't be counseling this way because it could be considered the unauthorized practice of law, or without the counsel of a title company. I don't think a title company should be discussing and telling somebody, well, here, based on what you want to do, you should do this. So they get it off the internet and they say, oh, well, if I die, it goes to the person, that's alive. Great. That's what I want. But they don't understand that it is unbreakable. When I say unbreakable, there's no exaggeration. It's unbreakable as a general rule. And what that means is that when people consider how they're going to take title to a property, unless it's of course just them, it is important that they understand and appreciate the various forms of ownership so they can effectuate whatever goals they have, which oftentimes is some estate planning goal. And if that's the goal, then write it up in an estate plan. Yes, it costs a little more money, but you avoid giving up control or getting stuck in a trap that you can't get out of. I don't know if that answers your questions. Yes? Okay. One thing to talk.
Oh, sorry. There's just one in the chat and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but it's a little bit different situation. It just says, can you talk about an aunt buying a home with a nephew and his wife as inheritance, but they refuse to pay anything?
That's actually
I could imagine a scenario like that. So hypothetically speaking,
well, Rick, let me interrupt. That's actually, I gave you that referral for Rita.
I know. I'm saying hypothetically.
Yes,
I'm well
so,
aware. Thank you.
but to you other agents that are out there, like, pay attention to what is written on the title docs that come over to you, because you may think that these scenarios are hypotheticals, but I'm going through one right now like from a family member, a client of ours who, it becomes a $20,000 or more court case in history. I mean, it becomes exceptionally expensive for like literally one word being added to the deed for how you're taking the ownership of the property. So guys, seriously, pay attention. And if you're not sure, talk to an attorney, talk to the title company, whatever, and make sure that it is the exact way that needs to be written. Because if something gets slid in and you don't notice it, they're effed. Sorry, but that's just the way that it is.
It really is true. So Andy was nice enough to give me a referral, and the facts are fairly similar to some of the things we've already talked about with joint tenants forward survivorship. And we're battling right now in court. But I can tell you there's one that still kind of breaks my heart, actually, even though it's many years ago. A gentleman was from Poland, came to this country with his wife. English was a second language. And unfortunately, he lost his wife when he was in his early 50s. And he was concerned about his house. He had a nice house worth over $300,000 brick house at the time on the east side. And he owned it free and clear. And a hardworking man, saved his money, etc. And he although I guess I can't say for certain, but when I tell you the facts, you'll know why I'm not certain about this, but it appears that he wanted to make sure that if something happened to him, that the house would go to his children. And he didn't know that much about American law. And he signed a deed with joint tenants and full rights to survivorship with his oldest daughter, even though he had 3 children. And the oldest daughter was, I think, at the time I think she was 18 years old. Maybe she was 20 and he was like 58 or 59. So considerable age difference. The gentleman gets remarried. New wife is with him for 35 years. Unfortunately, he but suffers from various ailments that unfortunately, like dementia and Alzheimer's, don't allow his brain to work correctly. And when he got married, he signed a deed from himself to himself and his wife. The problem is now his wife's been taking care of him now for several years. He's not able to take care of himself. They want to move to a condominium. They want to take the equity from this home, buy a condominium, and then have money to assist with care and to live on. And as a result of that deed that was signed before wife number 2 came about, it was unbreakable. The husband could sign a deed to his new wife, and she would be able to use that house to the extent he lives. But that's it. And when he passes away, her ownership interest is extinguished. Well, it was like almost a 40-year difference in age. And, the biology is pretty clear on that. He was already sick. He's going to pass away before his adult daughter. His adult daughter wouldn't undo the deed, wouldn't include her siblings, wouldn't do anything. And he died, and the daughter got the house, which I think at that point was almost worth $400,000, free and clear, and evicted the second wife. Those are the kinds of ramifications. I know that's a really bad example, or good example, I suppose, in demonstrating it, but those things really happen. And it's all based on ownership. So to me, it's something very, very important. I will tell you that if somebody is unsure, they should take it as tenants in common. You can always change the form of ownership later. You can go to an attorney, you can research on the internet, you can do whatever you want to do. But if it's silent, it's tenants in common. A title company is not going to write anything in there unless they are asked to do so. So buyers should be careful how they take ownership. Any more questions about that? Should I keep talking?
Yes. We
All
can
right.
just feel like I want one. Everyone stuck around. It's great.
Okay. I'm seeing a lot of appraisal guarantee addendums. I've been asked to write some. In an appraisal guarantee, it should be crystal clear that, for instance, the buyer is agreeing conceptually to pay more than the value of the property. And this goes to recitals. So recitals are kind of, how did we get here? And then here's what we're going to do about it. So recitals are not, they're part of the contract, but they're not binding anyone. They're just saying, what was the reason for us deciding to draft this addendum? And to me, it's very important that it says that the buyer has agreed, if the appraisal is for less than the amount or the purchase price, has agreed to pay additional amounts above and beyond, fill in the blank, the 5%, the 10%, the 20%, whatever they were going to bring to the closing. They've agreed to pay extra money. And that if in fact the house, usually it's bracketed. So it says, I'll give you one I just had this morning. Person offered 310. They said they'd pay up to $10,000 over the appraised value, not to exceed 310. So it says that the buyer has agreed to pay up to $10,000 over the appraised value. Specifically, that the buyer would pay, who was bringing 20%, would pay in addition to the 20% if the appraisal were less than 310, but 300 or greater, would pay that 20% and the delta between the purchase price and the appraised value. That this supersedes the finance contingency, which inherent in a financing contingency is an appraisal contingency, even though it doesn't say it, because the lender won't extend a loan if the collateral is insufficient, meaning it's not valuable enough, and that this specifically supersedes the implied contingency in the finance contingency. And again, of course, you want to make sure that you have language that says that this addendum will, if there's a conflict between this addendum and the purchase agreement, this addendum will control. I'm seeing escalator clauses. Same thing. You're going to want to make sure you talk about, that the buyer has agreed to increase their offer. Usually it's bracketed, although I've seen it unbracketed, which is crazy. So it says, my offer is 300, but I'll pay up to 320 in increments of $2,000 of the next highest offer, subject to a bona fide offer being provided to a buyer for their approval. It can be blacked out as far as names, but you want to see an offer. There are inherent problems with an escalator clause. You don't know if it's actually a valid buyer. It could have been the seller put their friend up to it. You need to make sure you talk about, well, what if there's matching offers? So I offer 300 and the other person offers 300. That offer wasn't better than mine. It's the same as mine. Is my offer then higher, or is my offer not higher? Is my offer just what it is? And it really all goes back to what I touched on earlier, which is take the time to be very specific. Write it out, then have your manager read it, or have your broker read it, or have your attorney read it if you want to. But have someone else read it who isn't familiar with the transaction and ask them, do you know exactly what's going on by reading this? And they should. They should know everything from reading that addendum as to what you're trying to accomplish in that addendum. And if they don't, well, then there needs to be more language added to the addendum. I'm getting a lot of situations where sellers are backing out of agreements. I don't know if they were too optimistic on their ability to find another home, etc. If a seller attempts to not go through with a full price and terms offer that's been provided, or any offer that they accepted, they are liable to the listing broker for the entire commission. Not even if there's a cooperating fee offered, the entire amount goes to the listing broker. We sue on these things all the time. We do it contingent, meaning if we don't win and collect, nobody owes us anything. People say, well, Rick, don't I still have to pay the selling agent? And the answer, unfortunately for the selling agent, is no. The offer of cooperation in the MLS is predicated on a consummated contract. So I get, for instance, 3% if the purchase agreement is consummated. If the purchase agreement is not consummated, There is nothing in the offer of cooperation that requires it be paid over to that selling broker. So the entire 6% goes to the listing broker. And same is true if you have a buyer that bails without a contingency to avail themselves of. We sue for that. We also sue for on a contingent basis. I get EMD questions. I'm sure you see them, but I get EMD questions about, well, Rick, I didn't get financing. I have a financing denial letter. Why won't the seller release my money? And the answer is that, well, probably because the seller's a jerk, but the reality is that money can only be released by court order or mutual written agreement. That's it. So I know, unfortunately, that brokers get put in a position with their buyer client. The buyer client says, I got the denial letter. It was from the lender you referred me to. Can't you read? I need that money to buy my next house. And of course, that means the selling broker would love to assist because they know that the person's looking at them like, well, you're doing something wrong. But the reality is it's a violation of license law for a broker to release money without mutual written instructions or a court order, period. So it can't be released. That means going to court. In my scenario, you'll win in court. I have a motion for summary disposition in an hour. Then you'll be arguing about an earnest money deposit that the seller refuses to release, even though we have a denial letter. The reality is the sellers can do that and be jerks. One way to counteract that is to have the earnest money deposit only have to be deposited after inspection. But in this market, that's probably not something that's going to play well when the seller is in the dominant position. So unfortunately, it's just a risk of whoever you're dealing with. Let's see. Oh, one other thing, post-closing occupancy. I see that many purchase agreements now call for post-closing occupancy. Why? Because, well, the seller has the power and they can say, I don't want to be out until, it's closed. I want 1 month, 2 months, etc. I agree from a selling standpoint, it's great because you don't want to move all your stuff out only to be left jilted at the altar at the closing table and not having someone buy. So knowing they buy and then having the confidence, okay, they buy, now I'm going to go to my next place. That's pretty valuable. But issues that we run into are, okay, who's responsible for repairs during post-closing occupancy? And some post-closing occupancy agreements don't state who is responsible for repairs. And to distinguish from repairs, also capital improvement. So repair is the doorknob doesn't work. A capital improvement is the water heater blew and has to be replaced. Well, is that the obligation of the seller post-closing occupant, or is that the obligation of the buyer? And it should be clear. An appliance goes, something goes. Who's responsible for those costs? Because when it happens, it is devastating if the party that's responsible doesn't realize they're responsible. And if it's silent, it's the property owner. It's not the seller, it's the owner, which is the buyer.
Rick, I had a question with regards to the occupancy because I was posed by a client of mine. Should the seller be required to get tenant's insurance during that 60 days?
I think it's a good idea, but they're not a tenant. They're an occupant. And there's a difference. There's no landlord-tenant relationship created by post-closing occupancy. And one of the fears is if they get tenant insurance and you've talked to them about it, required it, some evidence that you understood that was happening as a buyer, then it could be argued that a landlord-tenant relationship has been created, which now means if they don't vacate, you have to provide a notice to quit. Otherwise, there is no notice to quit required. You still have to go to court because you can't use self-help to evict, but a notice to quit would be required. In addition, we have the Truth in Renting Act and the Landlord-Tenant Relationships Act, which would control in a landlord-tenant situation, which is the property has to be inhabitable. So if something breaks, you got to immediately fix it. Whereas if it's post-closing occupancy, there is no landlord-tenant relationship created, which means the Truth in Renting and or the Landlord-Tenant Relationships Act has no application. So it's a balance. Some people say, well, Rick, I want to charge a fee, which I totally get. one could argue that a landlord-tenant relationship has been created. Now, I'd put specific language in that says no landlord-tenant relationship has been created. It's simply, you know, the 1/30th of PITI, et cetera. And it's based on post-closing occupancy, but you want to be clear, again, in an addendum, you want to be crystal clear as to what the parties have agreed to.
Okay, thank you.
And just to not piggyback, but I'm just gonna ask the question because I'm just gonna ask the question. If the sellers are taking occupancy for how many days after closing, does the new buyer receive a key? Or
To be determined, but I you know, if as a legal matter, the buyer can go in the house. Now, the cops might get called, and then you might have a post-closing occupant seller not treat the property very nicely. But unless it says exclusive occupancy by seller, it's not exclusive. Make for an odd situation, but the buyer can go in. I think it's better to talk about, hey, I get to come in with my contractor, you know, I get to come in and look at the yard, I get to, you know, whatever it is, as the buyer, put that in writing, because if it doesn't say you get to come in the property, yes, I'm telling you as an owner, you get to come in. But the minute they call the cops can say, no, civil matter, you can't come in. They don't want you in. You say, but there's nothing that says I can. And this attorney says, technically I can come in and say, yeah, we'll take that up with your attorney in the courts. So as a practical matter, you want to include that language, which is good to bring up because a lot of people have ideas of, you know, I need to do it for space planning for my furniture, or I need to do it my painter, or redoing the floors, or whatever we're gonna do, the yard, the whatever, you know, or I want to move stuff there. You know, I want to bring my patio furniture. I want to bring a play set. I want to bring a hot tub. I want to put stuff in the basement. If you want to do those things as a buyer, make sure it's in writing.
okay. It's just interesting about the landlord-tenant relationship that it's not that, because I had an interesting conversation with it's just interesting. So thank you for clearing that up. I appreciate it.
No
Yeah, I
problem.
think that's actually helpful, Rick, because I think a lot of us are under the assumption that it is. And I think knowing the difference between occupant and tenant is an important distinction.
It would be the same as somebody who lost their property for tax forfeiture or mortgage foreclosure. There is no landlord-tenant relationship with them. No notice to quit is required. Most people don't know that. Well, even lawyers, when I say most people, that they should know. Most of them do not know, but we've been tested on it, and the law is clear. There's no landlord-tenant relationship created.
So Pam, to my understanding, we don't have a post-occupancy addendum
No, I'm looking-
in
I'm
our
looking at
office.
that
And I
right
know I just got sent one from a Coldwell Banker office regarding getting it signed, and I was reading over the language, and it's very relevant to what Rick's saying. Is this something that
Yeah.
Maybe Rick, you can speak on it a little bit more. Is this something that we're kind of leaving our pants down in the wind by not having a post-occupancy addendum?
Well, it is my general opinion as an attorney and someone involved in real estate is that you reduce everything to writing. And sometimes, you know, the client says, oh, well, I get to go over there with my contractor. We're going to space plan the new kitchen I'm putting in and you tell them, well, you can't do this. What do you mean I can't do this? It's my house. And you say, well, that's not what was agreed to. Well, I don't recall that. What are you talking about? And you say, well, look in the post-closing addendum that you signed. And it says right there, you know, it's only permissible by mutual agreement or unless expressly reduced to writing in this extra section. Now, they might be pissed at you, but you did your job. And they could say, well, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you alert me to that? And I'm like, I don't know, it's in writing and you didn't say anything to me. So I do think it's helpful when these things are in writing, because when it's not in writing, what does everyone imagine? The most beneficial situation they can, and that because they're not getting the most beneficial situation, you, their agent that brought them through this whole process, got them to the finish line, got them this great house, now you're a screw up because they don't have this ability. So I maybe as a CYA, maybe to get people thinking, you know, clients thinking about what do they really want.
Yeah, I mean, I get the question asked all the time with these 60 days of occupancy. Like, what happens if the fridge breaks down? What happens if the this breaks down or that breaks down. And it is ambiguous based on the wording that's in there right now. And I personally have always loathed the ambiguity that's there. And so I think that that post-closing addendum, if worded correctly, will help identify, what, like you said, with the doorknob example versus the hot water tank example. I think that's being able to clarify who's responsible for what, so that those expectations are there, I think could be really helpful, from a standpoint of avoiding potential litigation issues, with clients after the 60 days. And quite honestly, most of us as agents, the occupancy period is like somewhat of a necessary evil, just because we've closed, we're done. Many of us are starting to move on to working on to the next transactions. And we obviously want to still have a smooth key exchange and have a smooth, thing. And if everything works out for its best, it's not a problem. It's when things don't work out for the best. And now all of a sudden you're getting pulled back into a situation. And I know, like, it's not necessarily my mindset, but sometimes the mindset of the agents that I'm working with, that they're like, we've already been paid, like this isn't our problem anymore. And now all of a sudden, you're left trying to help clients handle this. And what I've always been told is, well, at this point, you just got to tell them to go talk to an attorney or something like that. And it just seems a little bit disingenuous than to say, no, we have this covered. We have a post-closing occupancy addendum. It's covered. Here's how we should handle that, that particular issue. And if there's still dispute on it, yeah, go talk to an attorney, but here's what we had agreed to. So I just think to maybe protect our clients moving forward, it wouldn't be unwise to consider adding this to our repertoire.
Jeff, and Pam, I have one that I've used in the past, so I'll email a couple.
Yeah. And Jeff, if you can send me the Stevie one, that'd be good. I have two I'm looking at right now, so you can look at them all and combine something. For the ones that are left, and I'm going to completely off topic. I don't have a launch date for the Remind Plus that's replacing Transaction Desk, so we can still add forms at this point. So I'll get something in front of Jim and we'll get something taken care of.
I think that's everything I got. And it's 1 o'clock or a little after.
Hey, Rick, that was really awesome. Thanks for all the insight. I really appreciate that.
Happy to do it.
It's very, very valuable stuff, especially in these times that it's very frustrating for both sides. And yeah, so you answer a lot of our questions, all of our questions. I'm sure people will start asking me stuff afterwards, but that's fine. But yeah, we really appreciate you a lot.
Good. Well, I appreciate that. I will tell you that, you got moved around. For those of you who are willing, I would gladly accept a positive Google review.
Oh, yay.
If you were willing to do that, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, I'll put a link up to your, I'll put a link on the office recap email that I send out. So we can do that. But yeah.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you,
Very informative. Yes.
And it's snowing at the conclusion of our April office meeting.
2 to 3 tonight.
I know, stupid. So, all right. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks again, Rick. I appreciate it. If anyone has any questions, as always, just let me know, text me, email me, come in my office, all that fun stuff. So I will talk to you guys soon and stay warm and 70s next week.
Yes. Take care, everyone.
All right. Thanks.